Okay, everyone. Thanks for watching our tutorial. Today we have some folks from the procurement team are gonna help run through how exactly you would want to apply to the RFP for research services on the history of slavery in Boston. So now I'm gonna pass it to Bill. Bill, take it away.
Sure, thank you. So as far as what you'd want to do to start, you'd want to go to boston.gov /supplier portal. That'll bring you to the homepage for the supplier portal, where you would get started. For those that already have a vendor ID and user ID, you would just enter your user ID and password here. You will be You'll need to be logged in order to respond to the event and update your information that way as well if it's been a while since you've logged in. But as far as actually submitting the bid, you would need to be logged in. For those that are not registered yet, you'd want to go to the vendor registration form here. Once you click that, it's going to ask for a little bit of your information. You'll fill out these fields. You would put your name here. It'll ask if it's a business, it'll ask for your business ID down the road. You just want to put your name here, put the tax ID for your business. If it was a personal account, just put your social in place of the tax ID. You'll leave this vendor ID space blank. If you're someone that's authorized to sign and execute contracts, you'll check the box right in the middle of the page there, and then you'll create a user ID and password for yourself, as well as obviously the security question and response. The user ID you create is case sensitive, so you just want to keep that in mind, for future use going forward. Obviously, the password will be case sensitive as well. Once you hit submit on this page, it'll bring you to essentially a confirmation page saying that your user ID has been created, and you'll so enter your information, and then once you hit submit, you'll see that the user ID has been created, and you'll receive an email confirming that information as well. That's just step one of the process. So once you are on this page, you want to click add, update your vendor profile, add new vendor, and then choose whether it's an individual or business. From there, you'll go and have the some of the information that you put in, like the tax ID, but you'll enter the business name here, the address for the company as well. As far as this page goes, you only need to fill in what has an asterisk next to it, so you don't have to worry about filling in every single field on the page. And you'll go through that, answer what required field, anything required. So like here, what type of business you are, corporation, LLC, individual. If the main address is the only address for the company, you can kind of keep going as far as not needing to put anything else in this area here. You will want to check the box that says, I guess personal preference, but most people opt to get POs via email instead of the traditional mail. Following page, again, is direct deposit, but this is optional as far as if you are awarded a bid or a job. This is, and how you would be paid. You have the option to put your banking info here. If it's something where you prefer not to have it on file, then you would just get paid by check. And if it was something where you maybe didn't have your bank info in front of you at the moment you were registering, you can still click to opt out, and then down the road you can sign back in, and part of updating the account is being able to add the direct deposit at any point. So don't feel like that's your only shot to do it when you're going through that. And
Sorry, Bill. Didn't mean to press pause, but I do have a couple of questions just off the bat.
sure.
First is all of this stuff you're describing is after you pressed submit, right? So everything would be on the sort of second or third page, because right now all I see is the create a vendor user account thing. I'm not sure I see the rest of the form that you're speaking to.
As far as which part? Sorry.
The address and the direct deposit information, all of that.
Oh, so that's part of like registering. So like after you hit submit, well, the first are you talking about like step one when you make the user ID?
After the user ID, you were describing a number of steps on a form. I guess I'm just asking, is that all also on your screen? Because all I see on the screen right now is just the create a vendor user account.
Yeah,
Um,
that's part of the process.
okay,
So
okay,
step one is making a user ID. And I just highlighted like the page that it brings you to because several
nice.
people see user account is created and they think they're done and they haven't entered any business information. So they just have a user ID that's associated to no account and it's just kind of in free float out there. So I just wanted to like highlight that you do need to, continue the process to actually register the business or individual account to actually have a vendor ID. And the user ID is pretty useless without it
Okay,
having it associated with the vendor account.
okay, that makes a ton of sense. And then, yeah, the second question was if the person doesn't have a business and they're an individual, do they just put their individual address and that kind of information when they're filling out the business sort of portion of it?
Yeah, I mean that's just where, yeah, like the home base for the person. Whether if some people have a PO box set up, but yeah, otherwise you would just use your own home address.
Okay, that makes sense. And Bill, is there any way, understood if we can't sort of simulate the whole process, but is there any way to see the screen where people would have to submit that sort of secondary information that you're saying after this initial page?
Yeah, so that's what I have on the screen right now.
All well, other people can correct me if I'm wrong, but all I see on the screen, Bill, actually is just the creative vendor user account. I don't know if you're on a different tab or something. Um,
Uh, oh.
that's why I was asking. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know.
Can other
I
can
just
other
sorry, I
people?
just have this tab up and it says my screen sharing. So I thought,
Oh, you're good. Do other people see the like the business address and that screen? It
No,
might just
I
be my
don't see
screen.
the vendor e form. I see the creative vendor user, the user account registration.
Same.
So if you have like the e form up, we don't say that. But you need to have an account to get to that.
Which is yeah, which makes a ton of sense.
oh
But Bill,
shit,
if you do
yeah.
have the e form up, then we can't see it.
Okay,
Now we
so
can see it. Okay. Okay.
right.
Um. Okay.
I must have selected a specific tab instead of the whole screen. My bad.
Totally
Um,
okay. Totally okay.
so sorry about that. So yes, this will be the page you fill out and enter your user ID, the tax ID, or social. If it was an individual account, make up your ID, your password, and security question. Once you hit submit, this is the page I was referring to where it says your user account is created. But you'd want to click this button here, add, update your vendor profile, add new vendor, and then select business or individual, and you would go from there. So enter the business information, the address, the email here would be like the main email sort of point of contact for the business. So whether some people put accounts receivable or bidding, like they make up an email address specific for the supplier portal. Others just use an individual one, whichever works best for the business or person, totally your preference. On this page, you only need to fill in the fields that have the asterisk next to it. So don't feel obligated to fill in everything that you see on the page. If your business just has the one address, then it'll pull the information you put in at the top as like the default. If you did have more than one location or there was a location separate for say ordering or invoicing or remittance, you would actually click the plus sign in this top right corner here, and a new one of these boxes will appear below for you to enter the additional address. And then you just designate with these three checkboxes, like what role that address has. So if it was just for remitting, you would check the box, only remitting on that address box and make sure it's not checked on any others. And that would be the case also going forward for future updates. for historical accounting purposes, old addresses cannot be deleted. We can deactivate them so they're not like able to be chosen or selected for certain things, but we can't overwrite them or delete them. So if the business moved, you would log in, go to the update section and click this plus sign and enter the new address info. Also, most people want to check this box here, which says that the POs will be sent through email instead of traditional mail, just to speed up that process, make communication a little cleaner. For the following page, it would be direct deposit information, and this is totally personal preference. If that's how you want to be paid, you would enter your bank info here. As far as the address goes, it just needs to be an active branch address. It doesn't need to be the headquarters or anything like that. If you did not want direct deposit, there's a checkbox in the bottom left corner that says direct deposit opt out, and so you just check that and then continue. And also, if you don't have your bank info in front of you at the moment, you can always add it after the fact or at any point in the future in the update section as well. So don't feel like you need to have it and this is your only shot to enter it. Going forward from there, this is just W-9 certification, essentially saying all the information you provided is true and accurate. Just click acknowledge, next, and this final page essentially just says that you or the business is not barred from doing business with the city. So you would check that, click next. It'll bring you to essentially like a summary page before you hit submit of all the information that you put in. So you just want to double check, make sure that's all correct. If not, you can go back and edit any typos that you may have had. And then once you hit submit, it'll bring you to this page here where it says your e-form was successfully submitted. You will get a confirmation email as well that'll essentially look identical to this page. The sender will be base.financials, spelled B-A-I-S. So you'll get the confirmation email acknowledging your application, and then typically it takes 2 to 3 business days for auditing to review and approve the account. Once that happens, you'll receive a second email from base.financials, and it'll have your vendor ID number. So instead of saying pending, it'll have the vendor ID number there. And that will remain the vendor ID for yourself or for you or the business as long as the tax ID stays the same. And obviously it's a personal account. You use your social, that won't change. But if the business tax ID changes or purchased by another entity and it changes, then you would need a new vendor ID. Because that's essentially the main characteristic the city uses to kind of distinguish from one account to the other. Or even, for example, if it was a personal account that you kind of did as like a side business, and then it grew enough that it became your main business, and you went and got a tax ID, same deal. You would need a new vendor ID to match the now tax ID if you used your social originally to start the first account. Name changes, it would just be send a W-9, and we can update that on our end as far as the name change goes, as long as tax ID didn't change. But that would be sort of just a kind of rough run through on how to register. And like I said, typically once you submit your application, depending on the queue of what they have in front of them, typically it takes 2 to 3 business days to get the vendor ID.
Awesome. Thanks, Bill. That's really helpful.
Yeah, no problem.
One question I have is, and I know we talked about this a little bit. Let's say I'm, wanting to apply, and I know it takes, a couple days for the City of Boston to review any new vendor applications. But let's say I sort of am hitting it to the wire and I really want to get in my application, but I haven't applied for a vendor ID yet, and maybe there's not enough time. And I want to make sure I do that eventually, but in order to get the application in, I just want to create a sort of a bidder account, which I understand is automatic. What does the process look like for that now that we know how to do a vendor ID?
The bidder ID is like an immediate approval. presuming obviously that the tax ID is not already in the system. But instead of clicking on the vendor registration form link that we started with, right above it is register as a sourcing bidder. And then it's just like basically the company info, like name, address. You'll make a user ID and password and connect an email to that. And then the last step would be like after you enter the tax ID, it's like basically you're choosing what business interests like your account has, which is the categorization information here. So when you get to that step, it brings up all of the category codes that the city uses. Let me pull up a better screenshot of it. So you'll see something like this here. And you'll see basically just a breakdown of all these different codes the city uses when they're putting out an event. Obviously, they don't want to get too bogged down in the detail, so it's a relatively brief description for each category. What I always suggest to people, and once you're at this page, is just hit Control F, and it brings up a search function on the web page. Just start typing in the keywords your business, and check off all that apply. If you're on the fence, if does this apply to me, does it not, because it is, like I said, a kind of short description, I would just check the box, and at worst you're going to get an email that you can ignore, but better to have that than the other way and have something fall through the cracks because you didn't happen to check that box. But it would look relatively similar to it's not as in depth. There's no direct deposit information. There's no, you don't have the option to put multiple addresses on there or anything like that. So it's basically like company name, address, phone number, tax ID. You make a user ID and password and choose these category codes. For the vendor ID, just to tie it back to these codes here, you would just need to wait until you get your vendor ID assigned to you. And then once you have that number, you can go in and do this same process. So you would log in with your user ID, and this is under main menu, manage events and place bids, and then my categorizations. And again, that's something you can always go in and update if you happen to, expand the scope of your business or anything like that, or even downsize. And maybe you focus on one particular thing. You can always go in and edit what you have checked off for your business.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super helpful, Bill. Thank you.
And then just as a note, if you have a bidder account and you're actually awarded an event, you need a vendor account to get paid. So our system will do that essentially, like once the person that's hosting the event selects the lowest bidder. If it was a bidder ID, it essentially like prompts auditing to make that bidder account a vendor ID. So there's no extra steps or requirements for the bidder or vendor to like change from one to the other if they're awarded an account. Awarded an event. The system and auditing will take care of that and let the buyer know what the new vendor ID is so that they can assign it to the right business or individual and get them paid properly. But it doesn't take any extra steps from the bidder to become a vendor if they are awarded an event. But hopefully that kind of clears up the distinction between the two.
Yeah, that does. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so let's say I have registered for a bidder ID or I got my vendor ID, and now I want to apply to actually, provide my services for the RFP. What does that process look like?
So you would just sign in.
Oh, and Bill, if you're on the internet, we can. Yeah,
I'm gonna switch over. Okay. So once you'll just go again to the supplier portal, you'll log in here. Even before you log in, you'll obviously see some public events that are going on the right-hand side. It has the event number, when it ends as well. And just for example, like right now, there's 39 public events going on. If there was like an event that you were specifically invited to that may not be public, once you log in, you would see one of 40 because it's something that the public doesn't have access to, but you may have been invited to participate in this event. So you would see one of 40 and then just scroll through, find the event number. And once you pull it up, it's going to be this. There we are.
And folks, the event number for this one is 13090.
Oh, actually, let me log in. Sorry. This is so find the number in the list, click the link, it'll bring you to the first page here for event details. You'll see these buttons on the left, either accept invitation or bid in on event. If you click accept, it's just letting the person who's hosting this event know that like you will be submitting an event and a bid. If you click on bid an event, it brings you to the details and like lets you get going right away. So totally up to you. This is just, again, notifying the event host that you will be participating. So if you click bid on events, I mean, obviously you can see some of the details here, when it ends, when it started, a brief description of what is being asked for. And once you click on bid, this here is just saying essentially like this is more so for goods versus a service. But you know, if you sold chairs and it was asking for 10 chairs, this is saying the default is going to be 10 unless you specify you will only want to sell 7. So typically you're just clicking yes here. And now again, you are on the events page. One of the first things I would say you can do is this link here is view, add general comments and attachments. So these are the different attachments that are applied to this event, where it gives you just sort of like the breakdown on the template for pricing proposal, what they're looking for. There is a wage step form that you do need to fill out as well. Doesn't want to open. Okay. There we go. And I gotta flip the screen sharing. So you'd have to, this is one of the forms required, just, as an example, and you would, read through that, certify that, everything here applies to you, type your signature in and upload the signed copy. So these are, like I said, are the different attachments. If there is something that you feel is pertinent to this bid that isn't directly asked for, this is also where you can add your own attachments. So you could, choose whatever you wanted to do, upload it, and this is where it would go. If you choose the wrong one, just click delete and it'll get it out of there. But that's where you go, put any of your own attachments, like I said, that aren't specifically asked for. And then as far as the event and responding goes, it's essentially kind of 2 sections where there are a series of questions you would answer. So this is, you can see here, 1 of 15. So there's 15 questions that you need to answer. Some of them have, these drop-down boxes with an expected response as well. So, I agree, You can view the associated terms with it as well. So it's not spelled out entirely here. Click the link so you can see all the terms and respond, I agree. As far as, go through these forms, everything you provide, true. Corey policy compliance. This is, the terms again for the Corey compliance, and here are the different options, that you would check depending on what applied to you. Similar to the vendor application, not barred from doing business with the city. Here's the wage theft form, and then here is where you would put it in as far as the attachment goes. So click that link directly. It brings you to this page. Looks very similar to that first comments and attachments page, but this is specifically for the wage theft form. So this is where you would upload it here, and then once it's uploaded, click OK. So this is just the hard copy for the bid. CM09, again, this is where you would attach that. Same as here for the living wage affidavit. So these are where you would go through, enter. This is very important here where you would enter the non-price proposal for this particular bid. So again, that would go, you click this link and specifically add it there, not in the general comments and attachments. It's specifically there. And again, here, this must be submitted separately from the technical proposal. This is the price proposal. So again, you prefer, you say your preference there as far as that goes. And then those are the 15 questions. The second part of the response would be entering your price, depending on, which time period you're doing for this specific event. If it was just the one, you would put your price here, depending on which period it was. If you're doing the first period, for example, you would enter your price here, whatever it may be. Click bid. The pricing proposal is going to go in this thought bubble. So that's where you would enter the price proposal separate from the technical proposal. And if you were doing, for example, all 6 of these time periods, then it would need 6 different proposals, one in each individual section. And then obviously with the pricing as well in the line. You can validate these entries, before, make sure that you answer them all. So I'm going to do this just to show the errors. So as I mentioned, there was 15 questions. And this is telling me, I missed question 3, 4. So it won't let you proceed or submit the bid until they're all answered. Or if you're only doing one period, for example, just click no bid on whichever periods you're not going to participate in. And once you hit submit, you'll be taken to a screen that says bid successfully submitted. You can go in and edit your responses up until the window closes. So for example, you have up until 3 o'clock on the 6th to go in. Maybe there was a typo or whatever the case may be. You can go in and edit any of your responses. It won't be seen until after the closing time for the event. In a similar fashion, just to be aware of, even if you went in to just double check your work and make sure that you entered the right price or whatever the case may be, if you go back into the event before it ends, the system essentially is presuming that you went in to fix an error. So you need to hit submit again, even if you didn't make any changes at all. You need to hit submit, otherwise it kind of keeps the bid in like an open status and unsubmitted. So just be aware of that as well. And then once the decision's made, you'll be notified either way. You were awarded the bid or you were not awarded the bid. And If you are awarded the bid, like I said, and you are a bidder, not a vendor, you don't have to do any extra steps. We'll kind of convert that bidder account into a vendor, and then let you know what your new vendor ID number is once that happens. And I would say if that is the case, just kind of forget your bidder information to avoid future confusion, because they have the same functionalities as far as what you can do on the site for the most part, other than being able to sign a contract and get paid. So the vendor account has those capabilities that the bidder does not. So just for convenience and sanity's sake, I would say forget the bidder's information and just, retain the vendor information for future use. But that would be how you'd go through the bid. If anyone has any questions or anything like that.
Awesome. No, that's great, Bill. Thank you so much. Does anyone else have questions for Bill? Okay, awesome. Well, just a reminder, everyone, that the deadline for the RFP is to submit your proposals for the RFP is November 6th at 3 p.m. So please make sure you get those in beforehand, because of legal restrictions related to procurement. We really can't take any late applications. So make sure you're getting that in and doing your best. And if you have any questions, as always, feel free to reach out to reparations at boston.gov. If you have any questions about the registration process or anything like that, we'll make sure to connect you with Bill and the rest of the procurement team. We're happy to help make sure these sort of technical barriers are not an impediment to getting your application in. So thank you so much for coming today and for listening in or for watching if you're watching the recording, and hope you have a great day.